All right, good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, in this video, we are going to be talking about the builder's sentiment and what that's going to have as far as an impact on the housing market. Now, everybody is very concerned about the housing market. It's probably the number one most important thing in people's lives is their dwelling or where it is that they are going to live. And that home ownership, as far as like the American dream goes, this is very prevalent within a lot of people's minds. Like, it's not uncommon to find people out there who desperately want to be in a house or to raise a family in a house or to even just invest into housing, but want to participate in the housing market. And right now, it is such a nightmare of a situation with shortages, high interest rates, the inequality that seems to separate the rich from the poor, making it ever increasingly harder for the working class citizen in order to for the working class citizen to acquire a home. And so a lot of times we look for like possible quick answers for it. I know many people anticipate a crashing housing market that is going to drive prices to record lows. I don't know how to describe it. And it gives everybody an opportunity to move into a house. Like, I don't know what it is that a lot of people are seeing out there when they think about the housing market crash that is coming. But what I find interesting about this particular like idea that there's going to be a housing market crash and that these people are going to have their opportunity to buy a cheap house. In fact, I had people tell me that they're going to be picking up my house for half of what I paid for it once it goes into foreclosure. Like, people are literally wishing that upon the economy so that they can get their opportunity. And this is like almost it's almost psychotic in a way to think about it, that you want to see the pain and misery happen so that you can get your opportunity. Like, instead of just figuring out what it is that you need to do in order to acquire something in this kind of a economy and environment, instead you're hoping that the economy and environment will be so devastating to some people out there, it'll give them their opportunity to buy into a house. Like, it's just crazy to think. What it's going to come down to is new inventory. It's going to come down to building new homes. That's it, right? That is going to be the answer to everybody's questions out there on what it is that we need to do, right? That's it. We need to build more homes, right? And so when I think about how many homes are under construction and what it is that people are demanding, there's still a shortage of new constructed homes. Like, there needs to be a lot more activity in this particular sector in order for us to find any kind of relief within the housing market. Now, I can give it to you like there's all kinds of, possible scenarios that would create the horribleness of a housing market crash that would then give some people the opportunity to buy a house. But really, the truth of the matter of it comes down to the construction industry and whether or not the construction industry feels confident in building new homes. So when I look at home builder sentiment, it has gone negative. Like, it is not positive in any fashion. I got the numbers here for you. Current sales condition has gone from 46 to 43. Anything under 50 is negative. It has the builder is confident over 50, even though it might be a low amount of confidence, at least they are confident. But if it's under 50, they are losing confidence. So current sales conditions, like the idea that there is going to be a decent way of being able to provide a home that is going to have a sales condition environment that is going to have that house moving, is gone negative. They just don't believe it exists right now. Traffic of prospective buyers. This is definitely negative. It went from 29 down to 24. Buyer traffic is all but disappeared for the builder, right? The builder's sentiment on buyer traffic, there's no buyer traffic. So if you don't have buyer traffic, like saying, hey, at least you have a potential for a buyer who's showing up, but if there ain't even a potential for a buyer, man, talk about a loss of confidence inside of that. The other ones is sales expectations. This remained flat at 47. It's still negative. There is no condition in which that these builders feel confident in starting new homes. So now I think about that. If you don't have the confidence to start a new home, how are you going to increase the inventory? Like I hear opening up lands and opening up, the ability to have this land to build homes on or something like that. And I'm thinking, well, that's all a great story, right? Cutting down national forests to provide cheaper lumber. And I'm thinking, well, that's a great story, but none of that makes sense. So you can open up the land all you want, but if the builder isn't confident, why would he come and build the homes? It's like you can open up that land all you want, right? I mean, I want sales conditions, the buyers, the prospective buyer traffic and the sales expectations to all be positive before I really ramp up production. I mean, think about it. That's what a builder would say. So I'm looking at this sales condition, I'm looking at the prospective buyers, I'm looking at everything that's happening out there, and I'm thinking there is not going to be a huge increase in the demand for lumber if these builders are not excited about the sales condition, prospective buyers, and everything that's happening within their industry in that fashion. So as I see people are losing their minds over Canadian tariffs on, lumber on Canadian, or the tariffs on Canadian lumber, and how that's going to cause all these major house prices or all these impact to the house prices, building costs and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, man, really what you have is a lack of builders' confidence, which is the demand side of this, right? It's a supply demand issue. Like you can put tariffs on something, but if there's no demand for it, it doesn't matter how many tariffs you put on something, right? It doesn't matter. It's just like people look at it as like, oh, you got 1,000% tariff, and then we don't want it anyway, right? And so it doesn't really matter. You have to have demand for it. If there is a demand for that particular product, well, then yeah, now you have something that you can work with. But if the builder sentiment is so far down, you're probably not going to find an increase in demand. So as the concern about tariffs and creating this issue with the builders saying, hey, I'm not very confident with the idea and the uncertainty around building costs, especially when it comes to lumber, I'm thinking, man, if you're not confident and you're not there and you're the demand side of things, I don't know what would make the cost go up. You're the buyer, right? Like the builder is the buyer of lumber. And if they're like, I'm not feeling good about any of this, right? You're going to have the supply-demand imbalance that happens from it. And if you have a lack of demand and too much supply, then prices are not going to go up. Now, considering that I'm in the industry, like the lumber supply industry of things, and I see a lot when it comes to logging, mill operations, the distribution network. There's really no corner of the lumber market I can't see. And so when I hear a lot of the misunderstandings that are being pushed out there within the mainstream media, especially when it comes to the Canadian tariffs, the tariff on Canadian lumber, so many just confusion and misinformed and just like chaos that is happening within that idea. It's horrible for a lot of people to try and internalize some of this information because they're just simply just not got it right. One of the things that I hear and I've heard, and I don't know where they got this, but somehow there's a lot of people who believe that 80% of the softwood consumption here in the United States comes from Canada. That's not right. We consume 20 to 25% of the softwoods we consume here in the United States comes from Canada. Of the imported woods that come in to the United States, 80% of that comes from Canada. It's not 80% of what we consume here, right? 80% of what we consume here in the United States is domestically sourced. So I hear, well, no, they got that wrong. It's the premium lumber that comes from Canada. And I'm thinking again, yes, there is a lot of good premium quality, awesome lumber that comes from Canada. The United States mills that too. I know, I work at a lumber yard. I buy premium grade lumber. All the lumber I have in my yard right now is all from Oregon in Washington. All of it. Right? Now, there was a time you could go through the yard that I work at and every single unit of lumber came from British Columbia. It just happened to be that particular time. right? Everything, everything in the entire yard was all from all Canadian lumber. And it wasn't always that way. Sometimes you would get, lumber from other mills. See, here's the thing that a lot of times that I don't know if people quite understand is that like lumber can be pooled together into buying networks. So you have groups of people who will buy lots of lumber and then distribute it out there to stores. Right? Big box stores do this individually. Other yards have buying groups that they join in with. You don't get to pick and choose necessarily what units you get, what kind you are after. Like you can say, I want, particular size. I want it to be a standard and better. I want it to be a premium grade. And I would like it to be one of these types of mills. And they would say yes or no to whether or not they have those types of mills. And then they would offer you up what it is that they do have. Sometimes you have your choice of mills, sometimes you don't. And so understanding that it's a pool of lumber, like it's not, I don't know how a lot of people want to put it. It was just like, the lumber from this particular mill is what they are using in this particular fashion or something, of like people want to, I don't know, confuse it in that way. It's not like that at all. Right? And so understanding that the whole lumber game is not isolated to Canada, right? It's something that is very vast, it's very huge, and it spreads all the way across the United States. It really, the tariff part of things is so small in the grand scheme of the entire new construction market that I don't even really consider it as an issue. Like me personally, I just don't. We've had tariffs on Canadian lumber for decades. It's nothing new, right? And as people are learning about it for the first time with all the other like, I don't know, chaos of information that is coming at them, from every direction. They don't know what the hell is going on. Countries shutting down, partnerships are being severed, and there's all this craziness. When you hear like 25% tariff and it's going to cause a $10,000 increase on the price of a home or to build a home, and I'm thinking $10,000 really isn't that much money when you consider how much money goes into constructing a new home. Right? And I think that's a bit exaggerated number, but even if it was accurate, $10,000, I mean, hell, you could probably save that in the cabinets and flooring that you put into the house. Like you could, you could fancy cabinets and, high-end cabinets and high-end flooring, or you take it down to, a medium style, as far as like not high-end, but just a lesser expensive one. You may save $10,000-$20,000 just there. Right? So the idea that it's going to cause this huge astronomical increase to new construction costs is just like, doesn't make any sense at all. Like that part doesn't, like it was almost fabricated into existence as far as the ability to scare people with this title, $10,000 increase to the cost of new construction. I'm like, none of this is like, all this is fear tactic, propagandized information. That's what all that stuff is. I mean, I'm looking at it daily. I see the lumber futures price. I check it 5 times a day just to see and make sure I know where we stand on lumber prices. And at $650 per thousand, this is like the same prices that we were selling lumber at back in 2018. This isn't like, some high price. I mean, it's elevated. Don't get me wrong. $650 per thousand is a high price for lumber, but it's not like we haven't been here before. And lumber peaked out at $1,700 per thousand. I mean, we're still like $1,000 per thousand under its all-time high. So it's not even close to like being high prices. These are normal prices at $650 per thousand. And really, when you think about it, like right now, there's about as much new construction that is happening, like new starts, new permit issuance, and houses sold all seem to be about the same now as they were back in 2018. And lumber prices too. It's like the same condition, essentially. I mean, the trajectory is kind of downward, but the exact snapshot and moment in time is very similar to that of 2018. I don't remember anybody screaming about, well, I do remember people screaming about the like downturn and housing market crisis and all the stuff back then, talking about recession. But it wasn't the same arguments and same talk of what we were experiencing now. I mean, I don't remember anybody back then screaming about how, like, the Canadian tariffs or the tariffs on Canadian lumber was doing all this. I mean, there were some people talking about it, but for the most part, nobody really was paying attention to any of that stuff. Like, it was not a concern. Think about the concern that you see now comparatively to then. It was almost non-existent then. Once you see the builder's sentiment shift, once you see the current sales condition go positive, the buyer traffic, the sales expectation, once that all turns positive, that's the demand side of things. The demand starts to pick up on that lumber, and you're going to find that right now, because of the mill curtailments, because of all the confusion that is happening out there with the idea of tariffs, the inventory depletion is still going down. Right? So there's not a lot of lumber out there within the system. And really, if you were a lumber mill, why would you want to produce when you have such poor sentiment within the builders? I mean, that's your customer. That's the people who are going to be buying your product. And if they're sitting there going, man, I'm not feeling really good about all this stuff going on out there, really, would you be like ramping up production to try and supply into that industry? I mean, the whole idea of we're going to open up forests, all these lands to cut down the forests and make it cheaper for lumber, for the builders. And I'm thinking they're not even in demand. I mean, if they were in demand, the mills would be ramping up production. They've been cutting back on production. There's plenty of room to ramp that up. We don't need a bunch of new trees to be cut down. What we need is demand. We need demand from the builder side of things, right? That would be the reason why you would want to cut down more trees. You don't want to cut down more trees if you don't have builder demand. You cut down the trees, they just lay there, right? The confusion is going to have people like very concerned and stalling out. That's what this is about, right? People are backing away from bidding out contracts. They're backing away from starting new projects. They're backing away from everything that they're doing out there because they want to go into this wait and see mode. I mean, everybody's in a wait and see. Federal Reserve's in a wait and see. All these builders, all these businesses, all these investors, everybody's in wait and see mode. Wait and see for what? What do you want to wait and see for? To see if the buyer or see if the builder's sentiment comes back? I mean, you want to wait and see what these tariffs are going to do for an impact on a product that has almost no demand to it? Do you think that's going to give you an accurate price? None of that stuff makes sense to me. Now, what does make sense to me is when I look at it from the credible threat theory, like I always do. And when I see it from that credible threat theory, I start to realize that a lot of what we are looking at out there is just noise. Very much like most of the stuff that I read about when it comes to lumber issues. I mean, it's just like everything that I read out there, I shake my head at, and I'm like, man, is this really what people are thinking and believing out there? I mean, I have people arguing with me all the time about the lumber industry and about, what it is that's happening out there and stuff. And I just like, okay, man, if you want to go off of that news article that you read that's misinforming you, I mean, I guess that's, one way of going about it. But I personally don't use those news articles to try and gather information. Right? I use it to either validate the information that I have or I, come out contradicting it, but I very rarely do I use the news articles that I am reading as any kind of real research, because there is no real research inside of that. Most of these articles nowadays are written by AI, and I've found that AI is completely inaccurate, The AI goes after narrative. Like, ask it, you want to prove it to yourself, just ask AI to tell you what the Federal Reserve's monetary policy is, what their inflation expectations, what their inflation goals are. You can't get it to tell you about flexible average inflation targeting to save your life unless you directly ask it about it. Yeah. It's because it seems to just be telling you the same regurgitated narrative information that everybody's talking about. All right. Kind of babbled on here, guys. What do we got? A $20 super chat. Let's go find that thing. Oh, where is it? It's got to be in there somewhere. Hold on, guys. Let me go find that thing. Oh, okay. Cool. You're back. All right. Sorry about that. I accidentally shut the stream down. YouTube. All righty, guys. I don't know what's going on with this, but every time I try to scroll through this, it's shutting the app down. Oh, there we go. $20 from JK, man. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. People who are praying for a housing crash want existing homeowners to lose their homes for that foreclosed property to be sold to them at a steep discount. That doesn't change the total amount of housing in the U.S. Yeah, and JK, that's what really kind of gets me about this is just like, you know, I think the idea behind it is that a lot of times I think an individual doesn't see how it is that they're going to be able to do it. Like, they'll never be able to make the payment. They can't come up with the down payment. The prices are too expensive. All this other stuff. They come up with all these things. They look at it. They break it all down. And they're like, man, I just simply cannot do this. Okay? And so in their head, they think, okay, there's got to be a situation that is going to occur that is going to give me the opportunity. What could that be? Housing market crash. Right? See, here's the thing, guys. I used to be I was very much, in 2019, I believed that there was going to be a housing market crash. I think that we were set up for it. Rent moratorium, the whole, forbearance and all that other stuff that came along completely disintegrated everything that I thought was going to happen. Right? I mean, that's where the housing market should have crashed, but they ultimately covered up the entire crash, right? Because people who should have gone into foreclosures didn't go into foreclosures. There was forbearance. I guess what I mean by this, there is a natural amount of foreclosures that take place in a housing market, right? Like, it's just a natural thing that occurs. People, there's deaths, there's, sicknesses, there's, change in lifestyles, whatever that had divorces. I mean, there's all kinds of things that would create a situation in which that a foreclosure would begin to occur inside of the housing market. If you took that away too, like you didn't even allow for the natural foreclosures to occur, everybody got forbearance, nobody's getting kicked out of their home, right? The moratoriums on all that stuff, that right there completely covered up what would have been a housing market crash. I hope people realize it. That's one of the reasons why I gave up on the idea of a housing market crash. It was just like, I was not expecting you guys to cover it up like that. That was really good job. Right? That was one thing that I was, rent moratorium, forbearances, all this other stuff. Like, I didn't even see that one coming. And once I saw that was taking place, I'm like, you guys just absolutely ruined the idea of cheap houses for people. Right? They prevented the housing market crash right then. So I realized it was just like, okay, so I got to change the way that I am viewing this. I got to look at it much differently than what I had done in the past. And so now here I am in one of the most expensive places in the entire nation with an average job, right? And I do have YouTube, so I have other income coming in as well. Now, here's the thing that I found about is that I was able to acquire a house. Like, I'm not the smartest dude in the world. I don't have degrees. I don't have family inheritance. I don't have some special skill or anything else going on. I worked YouTube like it was a second job. I could have taken a second job. It would have been the same thing as having my YouTube channel. Right? And I think that's important to understand is that a lot of people are like, well, we're not all YouTube famous or whatever. And I don't even find myself that, famous on YouTube, but people say, well, we all don't have that opportunity. I'm thinking, yeah, but I worked the damn channel like it was a second job. Like I literally put that much time and effort and energy into coming up with the videos and making sure that I could get them done. And, they're constantly trying to get them out because I did pre-recorded ones before and I would do them in one shot. And if I screwed it up, then I would start the video over again. Sometimes I would have to try 20 times before I would get the video done. And, doing that constantly, it took a long time before I was ever able to get it to a point where I was making money off of it. I probably could have done it faster, got into the house faster, had I taken a second job, because I would have been working and earning money right away. But instead, I had to work YouTube like it was a real job for years before it started to pay me. So again, it's a matter of getting the income, right? Your day job isn't going to be enough. I hope people just realize that. It's never going to be enough. Your day, like that was a time long ago, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even into the 80s. We could have talked about having an average job and that being enough to make the payments and do all the other stuff. It doesn't do it now. It's not going to do it. Never is there a politician or a system or anything else out there that is going to be magically formed into a condition in which that the average job is going to be able to do that again. Right? It's like, I don't even consider it a possibility. I got this shield it there, my phone. And so to understand that, it's going to take something far different from that, and that basically is going to mean that you're going to have a lot of income coming in. You have to double it up, right? So you have your average day job like I got, then you got to figure out how to do some other kind of income, online affiliate sales, running, running a business out of your home, doing a second job. You got to get out there and get the money. And I know a lot of people are saying to themselves, is like, man, I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to do all that effort. I don't want to, I want to enjoy my life. I want to, it's not all about matter of work. Great, man. That's a wonderful story to tell yourself, man. But this is survival. I'm not screwing around. Right? Yeah, I would love to have a wonderful life where I get to sit margaritas on the beach every single day and I get to work, 40 hours a week and then have everything I ever could possibly have wanted in my life. Hey, sounds great, man. Let's sign me up. I want to do that too, but I don't believe that exists. And therefore, I don't even consider something like that, nor do I expect it to happen. I don't expect anything out of anybody out there. I put out as much effort as I possibly can in order to acquire these things that I do. And I look out there and I hear people saying that it's just not possible. And I'm like, man, I did it in one of the most expensive areas in the world. Not in the world, in the country. Right? I did it in one of the most expensive places in the country. And I did it with high school diploma, this YouTube, other side hustles. And I was able to figure out how to get into this house. But it took so much effort. Right? And since most people aren't willing to do that, they hope and wish and dream and pray for a better opportunity that says whatever it is that they are doing is going to be the appropriate thing. They don't want to change. They want the world to change. Right? They want the world to come undone so that their ability will then be matched the undoneness of the world. And I don't know how else to put that, right? So most of those times, even when I see it in the comments section and all that, I just have to come down to the realization, you're jealous, right? And that's sad, because I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a good motivator. I would imagine that most people who find themselves with the ability to get into a house or to have what they feel is that American dream opportunity, they weren't looking at other people going, I'm going to do it better than you and I'm going to do it better than you, right? They weren't doing that. They were looking at themselves and saying, man, what is it that I need to do in order to make this thing happen? Right? They weren't like, okay, I need to do this and you better not, and you better not, and you better not, because my effort's got to be better than yours so I can get into the house, because if you guys try real hard, then I'm not going to be able to compete against you and I won't be able to get into the house. You see how dumb that sounds? But yet it seems to be appropriate if you say, oh man, you're going to lose your house and I'm going to pick it up for 50% of what you paid for because you're going to go into foreclosure. Like, you hear how silly it sounds? So anyway, let's move on here. I'm almost done. What time is it? Yeah, I got like 2 minutes left here. Wow, look at all these comments. You guys are really going off. That is awesome. All right. Lumber prices are based on speculation. 100, they have never been based on demand. Okay, I'm just going to end it right there, because obviously you got your opinion on it. I have been accurately calling out lumber for years now. I mean, I get invited to go talk about lumber on stage to play. What you have just said is completely out of the it's out of here. It's like you're not even close. All right. What's dumb is agreeing to buy a house you cannot afford, sign up for slavery. See, now here's another one. What was it? What's your name? Fast Face Kirk? What Fassel Kirk? I don't even know what your name is there. Something Kirk. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to dog it. I just can't read the gray inside of the black there very well. All right, but what did you say? What's dumb is agreeing to buy a house you cannot afford. Here's the thing. Who in the world is signing up people with mortgages that they can't afford? Like, that was something that happened during the great financial crisis. Right now, if you want to get a loan, if you were trying to get a mortgage, you have to be a qualified buyer. Right? Now, I understand that most people are looking at that going laughing, you think they're qualified buyers or whatever. I tell you, the efforts that I had to go through in order to get a loan, and I had a foreclosure in my past too. That's another thing. Right? That's another thing. On top of all the stuff that I'm like most expensive, super, whatever, all the stuff, and I had a foreclosure in my past, and I still got a house. Right? But here's the thing. They don't just willy-nilly handing out loans to people who are just going to go and get foreclosed on. That was predatory lending things that happened back in the day. Right? Most of the people who are getting loans now are incredibly qualified. In fact, I'm not sure what the percentage is right now, but really there was more cash sales of homes happening now than just about any time in history. Right? In the last 20-something years, like since the 80s, I think it was. Right? There's more cash sales happening now. Those people aren't getting credit checks. Who cares, right? They're not going to miss a payment. They already paid the house. They don't care what interest rates are. They're willing to buy at that price. What does that tell you, right? I mean, people who are thinking, crashing housing market going to come. I was just like, are you considering what it is that the rich people are buying right now and separating themselves from all the rest of the poor people? They're doing it with property. And it's pretty obvious. All right, I got like 1 more minute here, guys. I live in Central California and rents are coming down. My in-law is having to sell his home because his business is done. I got a loan in a bank. See, here's the thing. He's selling his house now, right? He's selling his house. It's not foreclosing his house. He's selling his house. That's the difference inside of it. Rents are coming down, right? Well, maybe rentals will come down because people are renting their houses out. Right? There's more rental available out there. As people are saying, oh man, look at it come down. And I'm thinking from what? From those extremely stupid, ridiculously high numbers? Are they coming down to something that is now reasonable? No, they went from stupid, ridiculously high to ridiculously high. Pretty soon they'll just be stupid high. And then pretty soon they'll get down to high, and then they'll get down to medium. You see what I'm getting at? It has a long ways to go. I bought my house 3 years ago. It ran up it was a lot. It ran up $134,000, right? Like the ZELLE estimate. And I'm like, there's no way that this house is worth $130,000 more than what I had paid for it. And that happened within the first 2 years of when I bought the house, right? And I mean, I thought it was ridiculous. At one time, you could see the ZELLE estimate go up on the house more than I can make at my job, my wife can make at her job, that I can make at my side hustles, including YouTube. All those things combined, I could not make as much money as the value of the house was going up, the ZELLE estimate, right? I was like, this is ridiculous. This is not right, and it is not going to last. So I could have put my house out there at the market for that extreme number, and it would have been out there. And if I was really wanting to sell it, I could have dropped the price dramatically. I could have taken it from 600 and something $1,000 all the way down to 550 and watched this 10% drop. Oh, you know what? Let's take it down even further. I really wanted to sell. I could take $100,000 off the price tag of this house and still sell it for a profit. 3 years. That's all I've been in this house is 3 years. This has happened. Right? People are saying, oh, look at the house prices come down. I'm like, to what? Like, compared to what? You know? I mean, I could take $100,000 off the price tag of the house. People look at it and go, man, look how much it's dropped. And I'd be like, no, look how much it's gone up over the last 3 years. Sure, the last year, as we watch that ZELLE estimate start to come out of the atmosphere of like ridiculously high price, we're finding it still land much higher than what I had paid for it. Now I get it. That's not the same story that people are going to tell across the country. But that's the story that I'm telling right now because people are telling me that I was going to lose my house. I was going to be underwater, that by this time right now, within 3 years, that I would be crying my eyes out with a underwater house and, you know, having to pay a mortgage that, you know, on a house that it wasn't worth it and all this other stuff. You should have seen it, man. The people were just like tearing me up, telling me I made the world's biggest mistake buying that house, laughing at me, saying, dude, I can't believe you did it again. You were such an idiot, right? Here it is. And I'm like, okay, well, I have a house. I lived in a house for 3 years. I got loads of equity in this house. I have the opportunity now to get into another house. Right? If I was so minded to do that. And other people are, you know, and all these people are out there going, nope, I'm going to sit around and wait. And I'm like, well, you keep waiting, man. I don't know. I mean, if I keep waiting, then my kids would have been growing up and I wouldn't even had the need to have a house. You know, sitting around and waiting. Waiting for what? You're waiting for your opportunity? Waiting for those other people over there to lose what it is that they've worked for so that you can jump on it like a vulture? That's your game plan? Okay, man. I mean, I know what it took for me to get into a house. I had to change my mindset from that over to what is it that I need to do in order to make this happen. The moment that I switch from I'm going to take my opportunity, as soon as the foreclosures start ramping up and all these people are losing their homes and I'm going to jump in on that opportunity, never once ever had that opportunity. The moment that I switched my mindset to going from I'm going to wait for a foreclosure to what do I need to do in order to get into a house, it was almost no time at all it took me to get into a house. And it was probably one of the best decisions I've made. I didn't think that at the time, but time it's proven it so, right? And again, I know a lot of people are like, oh, just give it a little bit more time. And I'm like, okay, what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years into it? At what point are people going to finally admit to saying, okay, man, yeah, you have to do it. You have to become a property owner if you want to be on the other side of the wedge. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. And it's sad to think that, because it's so difficult for a lot of people out there, but that's the truth of the matter. If you are not moving yourself into being a capitalist or a property owner, you're going to get left behind. That's all there is to it. All right, I would love to keep out here and keep chatting, but I got to go back to work. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.